This episode of Communism Survivor will feature USSR socialism survivor Art Gonsky. Art lived in what is now present-day northeast Ukraine. Art discusses his various experiences living under communism and what led him to leave for America.
So your experiences run the gamut then, from...
Yes, from being born.
Do you still have family there?
Yes, I do. My uncle just passed away about 6 months ago, but his daughter and her 3 kids and his grandkids, her grandkids, are pretty much there. So it's an interesting time there. And also have families in what used to be called Sverdlovsk. Now it's called Ekaterinburg. Of course, the city where I was born in, Kharkiv and Kiev.
Oh, wow.
My father's from Kiev originally.
Okay.
And he was born in Crimean Peninsula.
Oh, which got, yeah. Oh, wow.
Which back then wasn't Ukrainian and wasn't Russian.
Right.
It was called the Tatar Autonomous Republic.
Right.
And so Stalin put everybody in, all the Tatars, one night. One night on the trains.
When was the last time you were back to?
Oh, I was back in the 2000s, a bunch of times early. I worked for the company that makes integrated circuits. And
Okay.
So I used to go and give lectures at pretty prestigious schools and also professionals and IC shows, integrated circuit shows, like Electronica in Moscow, for example. So it was, and the very last time I was there about 6 years ago, my uncle's 75th birthday.
Okay. When did you actually say, that's it, I'm done, I'm out of here?
I usually come in the morning, red-eye
No,
flight. When I completely left.
Right.
This was in the 80s.
In the 80s?
In the 80s, but-
what was it like living there before that time?
Before that time, it wasn't great, but it wasn't so. I wasn't. My passport, nationality on my passport said Jewish,
Okay.
right, which is interesting.
Which, that's me. So.
Right, but nationality in the passport, so you
Right.
immediately were precluded from going to certain universities,
Wow.
going to certain schools. So everything had to be done because you know people or you pay people off. That's whole Soviet system, anyways.
It's a
if you want
business. It's a big
something.
business. It's not.
But it's a black market business.
Yeah,
It's a
okay.
huge under the table business, which is sort of interesting. Everything is there done. If you can think of anything, service products, anything, it's all had to be done under the table, unless you're willing to do a crappy job and
So
do whatever. Yeah.
basically, you're trying to get ahead, especially
Right,
with that
right.
tag on you,
Yeah.
is almost impossible.
Almost impossible. So you have to know people.
And if you don't know those people, what happens to you?
You kind of screwed. You ended up playing or working in the. It's not a bad thing.
Right.
You sort of are becoming one of the people, but the possibility of the whole Russian Jews, and I see it here, is they think they know. Well, I'm as Jewish as it gets, believe me.
Yeah.
But the majority of Jews here and the ones that created started the whole October Revolution,
Right.
they thought they know better than anybody else, and that's a problem, number one, in my book, and it's just kind of perpetuated for the last few hundred years, and I
Right.
think that's one of the reasons why Jews have always been as kind of scapegoats.
Yeah. And it seems like it all the time. Yeah.
And that's
But
a huge problem.
But that put a lot of added pressure not only on you, but your family, right?
It has. Well, my family was putting pressure on me, and whether you be a musician or gymnast or some other crap that I didn't want to be. I wanted to be in the military.
Okay.
I've always been the gun-ho, sort of.
That's okay.
Yes.
Russian military or?
Soviet military, of course.
Oh, okay.
But my mother thing is you wouldn't go past lieutenant colonel if you're Jewish.
I was going to say, even if you got in.
if you made it that far, right? You
Right.
couldn't get past. But
Right.
I got in because my grandfather on my mother's side was in the military. So I had,
Oh, okay.
plus I have friends, the Air Force Academy, which you get an engineering degree plus whatever,
Right.
was in my hometown. And it's well known in the Soviet Union. So just because of the grandfather and
Right.
the people that my father knew, even though he wasn't from Kharkiv, he was from Kiev, even though the people that he got to know, because when he got married to my mother, he moved to Kharkiv, it was easier to get a job for him being Jewish than it is in Kiev. It was a lot more anti-Semites there. It's amazing. So, and he was a normal guy. He worked at he was a civil engineer, repairing bridges, roads, so he didn't complain.
Yeah. So
He drank, but everybody drinks. It wasn't any
I
different.
got that impression. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you left?
To leave Soviet Union, I was about 17, 18. but then leaving the area. I was in my 20s to come to
Okay.
the U.S.
So you ended up going to school
There was
there, here, where?
Afghanistan. There was Afghanistan involved.
Yeah.
And I kind of everybody volunteered for that, by the way, unless you were in the jail. Then they'll send military jail, and then they'll send you there. Strafbat. That's what it's kind of called, Strafnoi Battalion. But for Jew to leave the country,
Yeah.
forget it.
Really?
You couldn't go anywhere unless you were. My parents actually left in '76 because of the Jewish family reunion. I think Ford signed that with Brezhnev back in Helsinki.
Okay.
Very early '70s, and at the time you needed to have a invitation from Israel to an
Really?
official invitation, and for that you had to give all the information to people that were going to Israel, and they would sneak it out somehow, and then you get the official from Israeli government invitation to get, which essentially
Wow.
family reunion. But they changed their mind in Austria, and they got to U.S. instead, Boston area.
How would you basically explain to a younger American who hasn't experienced what you have, well, you know, what's it like, that situation?
That situation, I guess if you want to be one of the drones, you'd have no decision-making capabilities. Whatever government says you do, you will do unless you can buy somebody off. That goes back to the black market.
Right.
And if you have relatives and or friends and your parents know somebody to get, let's say, a better job, to get into the better school. But when you get into school, which is, of course, free, and if you make good grades, they pay you a stipend, enough for cigarettes and movies, which was 25 cents, by the way.
Okay.
So it's kind of interesting. And the cigarettes were about 20 cents. So you can actually get away with the $5 to $10 stipend per month.
Okay.
If you have good grades. And so you go to school. When you graduate, you have no decision-making capabilities of where you're going to go. So let's say if you're a doctor, they will send you where the government think they'll need you. So you can be going to Vladivostok area, which is 11 time zones, used to be now 9. You're going far east, right? Not far from
Okay.
Japan. Basically feeding mosquitoes, bigger than Florida.
Yeah, big ones,
Big
right?
ones.
Yeah.
So unless you knew somebody and your parents knew somebody, or you can buy somebody off, so you can go to a town or a city that you like, or you stay in your own city, which was very difficult.
Yeah, so basically you had
Right.
you
have no decision.
No decisions.
And if you didn't make it into college, which was an unbelievable selection process, you get drafted.
And you don't have no choice.
No choice. But from my perspective, military service, if you're healthy, it's not a bad thing.
Okay.
It's actually a good thing, because instead of you hanging out in the corner if you didn't make the school and you're trying all different sort of manual labor jobs, you're going to get a job there. So for 2 years in the Army, 3 years in the Air Force, and 3 years in the Navy, you actually come out a person. You come out a person after the boot camp, but you get to be a better person there. So to me, that's a good experience. If you graduate from college, you also have to serve 2 years, but you're kind of an officer, but not really. There's something in between, sort of compared to the Navy. They have a kind of a chief
petty
award,
officer.
a chief petty officer.
Yeah.
You're sort of in between.
Wow.
There's no stripes on the epaulets, but just like 1 or 2 or 3 stars, depending on the.
Right.
And that came back from before the revolution, which
Wow.
was revoked. So proper chic. It was interesting.
What was your experience like dealing with the government for like healthcare or things like that?
Healthcare was free for everybody.
But
if you want it done right, you have to find somebody to pay to get it done right.
so let's say that you had appendicitis. And,
I'll give you a good example.
Yeah.
I was young and stupid, and I'm just old, right? Still stupid. And this is back when, well, the winters in Ukraine were pretty cool. Cross country skis and skiing. I'm getting bored on the flat, and I wanted to do a little mountain type of skiing. I found a set of stairs. So broke my leg in the process. Even apparently there was a bed break, which I didn't know. They got me into a regular hospital where they put a cast on it. Oh, of course, X-rays. Everything was done fast. Everything is pretty quick there, free of charge. But 3 days later, my parents having I guess a house party, you call it. It's very popular back then in the Soviet Union. I think still is, although the restaurants are more open now. But a lot of families, and my parents' friends brought another couple with them who apparently was a great dentist in town, like big time. And So here I'm at the table with my left leg, and they're telling the story after they got bored with everything else. And this is dentist, mind you. He goes, oh, let me see this. And then can you feel this? Can you do that? No. And he goes, okay, here's the number. Call tomorrow morning as quick as possible. So my mother called. They put me into a trauma institute. That day, they deployed me that day, and my father had no idea what I was going to. So they popped the cast, they opened up my leg, and they put screws and plates in it. And because it was a spiral break, four pieces, it would have healed. But what they said, the leg would have been shorter, and it would have been, I guess, aligned properly.
So just sheer luck. Having a dentist come to a party, right?
A dentist that actually realized what you had and give the number of the guy who's in charge of that trauma institute, which is a specialty at the time. So I spent good 2 weeks there.
How would you compare that to what happens in this country?
Here you would find you have more than one opinion, of course, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I couldn't say anything when they brought me to a hospital. And here you'd actually have a second opinion. You can have a third opinion. You can spend a little more money. Granted, there's a negative to it as well, because a good medicinal support, help costs money. And then the question is, where do you get it? Right? Mm-hmm. If you need it. I mean, I've known people that would lose their houses, for example, because they were sick. So what happens then? To me, free medicine has a great ring to it. Paid medicine, it's great because it's a capitalist system and it always works because you can always find something that's better. And the system, as far as the school, the education, the work that you do to become a doctor, it's always better here because they always find somebody better. Or if you don't think you're good enough here, you're going to move into a different place. Or if you're good enough, you're going to get to be Dr. House, right? For like a good example. So that's a great thing, but the monetary part is the key. So what do you find at happy medium?
Right.
Nobody has yet. At least Germany kind of have. The companies there pay a lot of money to do the system. And so you do have a decent, let's say a good system. That's where all the Russians now go.
To Germany?
Actually, to Germany.
Really? Even though they get free health care in Russia, they leave and go to
Germany to get the better results.
It's like Canadians coming to the U.S.
Coming to U.S., yeah.
Wow.
And some of us go to, no, not me, but some of us go to Mexico to do teeth.
Right.
So, and then the English go to India. And, there's all sorts of, medical travel, if you will. So you got to find a good happy medium somewhere in my book.
Right. Do you see any similarities between what's happening in this country today and where you came from back then?
I do. History-wise, I do. But the huge difference is the whole Soviet system was based on education. Mm-hmm. Education. Lenin pioneered that.
Okay.
And even though there is a censorship, has to be, right? Because there's certain things like me finding out about America. It wasn't an easy thing after I made the decision.
How did you actually do that?
1973. 1973. This is what made me to start thinking about moving to America. That was the impetus for it. 73, a house party at my parents' best friend's house. They left early on. They live in 75. They live in New York now. Then they had a daughter my age. Okay. And so we grew up together. Actually, her mother, we were born about the same time, about a month apart. So her mother was feeding me breast milk. So it was that close of a family.
Okay,
right?
Yeah.
So we show up, my parents and I, we show up 73 for a house party. Apparently, the house party was set up around the Sears catalog of 1971. Remember Sears catalogs?
Real, yeah.
1971?
Okay. Yeah, real thick, yeah. You were sitting on it?
So they were, hey, I wish, right? So everybody was just going through it. So they get bored, they get drunk, whatever. I got a hold of it. Mm-hmm. I was like,
wow.
It was an eye-opening experience. House. You could get a freaking house.
Yeah.
Never mind the dresses, never mind everything else. And what stuck in my mind, at that point, I said, I'm leaving. It was because we always into cars. We could never have any, but my family had a car. And so you cheaply, by the way, you can buy a kit to put a vinyl roof on your car. And I'm going, fuck. With the country that's that good, you have everything for everybody.
Right.
You got to move. You got to move. It's just that was the point of how you get there, right?
A Sears catalog is
Sears catalog was 1971.
Wow. That's a different story for coming to America through Sears.
But this was a reason. So the country that thinks of people first, granted, it's money based, because if you come up with a product people will buy, it's perfect, right? But it's also taking care of the people, not taking care of the military, which is what the Soviet Union did at the time. Everything went for the war machine, whether it was a war or not, nobody cared. But that's it. So people, and also struggling to find a dress for women or shoes for men or what have you. In Sears catalog, it was beyond plenty, right? Beyond.
So,
oh man.
if I remember back then, it was difficult when you went into a grocery store. There wasn't.
There wasn't much.
There wasn't much.
There wasn't much at all, and you had to know people again. Just like I said, food, everything was under. The people that made the best money under the table wasn't engineers or doctors, because salary was the same, plus or minus maybe 5-10% at the most. So a doctor would make same money as a street sweeper, except street sweeper would actually get a free room, right?
Wow.
You think about that. So to get food and to get clothes from foreign countries, everything was snuck in, and had to go through Moscow or Kiev, depending on the tourist, depending on who can sneak what in, because the borders were very tight.
Mm-hmm. What was your first experience when, I don't know if you got off a plane or if you, I don't know how when you first stepped on U.S. soil?
I could get orange juice at the hotel restaurant late at night in the food, orange juice, and it was fresh. Beyond, who knows, maybe it was concentrate, but man,
Didn't matter.
I've never had one before, so that was it, and that was the first experience. And then, so this was New York, and then going to Boston, and my parents there. And then you start seeing the things. It was difficult because the language barrier,
right?
And then you're always a foreigner, so to speak,
right?
And back then, who the hell? But I did get a job 2 days after, because my relatives, their kid, worked at the nursing home doing dishes, preparing whatever food. So the food was free, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was perfect. Who cares about the dishes?
Right.
You can do the dishes. Plus, it had a machine.
Yeah.
You
All you had
up,
to do, right.
Close it. So that lasted a couple of months.
So
that was good.
In the big picture, if you were talking to a 19-year-old or a 20-year-old about life there, life here, what's the one thing you would try to tell them about what your experience, and can you sum it up into a quick package? Like, what would you tell your son if he wanted to go back to Russia?
Well, if they want to go back to Russia, at this point, I don't mind going back to Russia, because Putin, he's the three-letter word begins with an A.
Yeah.
But the way the Russians are governed, I don't think he has a choice. Plus, he is, I can't say nationalist, but the Russia comes first to him, right?
Right.
And
isn't that something?
To me, have a pride in your country probably would be number one.
Right.
Number one, pride in your country. America is an exceptional country, just because it was kind of a late to the table, and because they isolated, everything here had to be created from scratch, really. Yeah. I mean, there was no foundation, right? So none of that hundreds of years European BS.
No, 300 years ago, it started from scratch.
Right.
Yeah.
And it got here. Granted, the history is volatile, but it's beautiful in a way that the things had to happen a certain way, and the history has to be studied, even if it's bad. But you got to remember, and you got to, because if you don't, it's going to repeat itself. Mm-hmm. It's going to repeat itself. So take a pride in your country. That's number one. To me, that's like number one, number two, and number three, because everything else will come from there. If you have pride in your country, you don't get people coming in from some God knows, some third world or the fourth world, and shoving their rules and their regulations and their language and their flag on you.
Yeah.
That's impossible. Putin actually said it at the some world event, and everybody hated him for it. He said, Russia is for the Russians. You come here, you learn the language. You learn how the Russian people operate. You learn our culture, our history. If you want to keep your stuff, go back to where you were. So the funny story, this is 1945. The war ended, a huge parade in Moscow. And Stalin and all his generals, I can name them all too.
Okay.
They're trying to take a picture. And Stalin kind of gets in there, gets ready for the picture, and then he steps back. He said, no, we should be taking pictures to all the Russian people, the little screws in our big machine that actually died and won the war for us.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't for the Russian people, we would be speaking German, so to speak. And one of the generals goes, Tavarish Stalin, how would you know? You're not Russian. You're Georgian. Stalin looks at him. I'm surprised he didn't shut him on the spot. But he said, I am Russian of Georgian extraction. So if you come from Georgia, which is his case, Armenia,
right.
and you set up within Russia or what have you, you're Russian first. Your background, yeah, absolutely, we respect that. But you're not Armenian/Russian. You're not Georgian/Russian. You're Russian of that extraction. So when you have, this pisses me off the most here, as a matter of fact. You might have to edit that later. The whole African American BS. It's like, no, okay. First of all, you have no idea if you're even from Africa. You could be your parents could be from one of the islands.
Yeah.
Why are you that? Oh, I'm Brazilian American. No, you're American now. You're Brazilian extraction, maybe. And Stalin was born and raised in Georgia.
Right.
He spoke Russian with a thick accent. And so is Beria, but that guy was an idiot. But still. So even with an accent, he was Russian first. So the pride in the country should come first. The Brazilians, there's a joke that I kind of, this is not a joke, it's actually a true statement. People come here just to change the zip code. And they want to emulate their country. So they live in like little enclaves. They don't venture outside. They don't introduce themselves to the history of the United States of America.
But
and that's a problem.
I know it's a problem, but
Yeah, big one.
I'm originally from Philadelphia, and there is a group in Northeast Philadelphia, all Russian.
Yep.
And they
They don't venture.
don't, yeah. And what you're saying is exactly what's happening there.
And the strange thing is, the only thing you may have in common, and most of them do, the only thing they have in common is the language.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, some history, yes, maybe some movies, whatever, books, I get it. But it's a new joint. It's a new country, and it's great. And it's huge. So people from Alabama don't really understand people from New York, nor do they want to.
Right.
And I appreciate every state, and even every state has the areas where people are different, but yet they get along really well. And to me, that's the foundation of the United States of America. You have people coming in from all over the world. Please be an American first, and then you can be the Filipino, Chinese, or what have you. Chinese actually not doing too bad. They're becoming more American, and even the South Americans, the Mexico and the south of the border, even they getting better.
Right.
That second generation, and then they guide that first generation. So to me, the pride in your country, because if we get attacked, 50% of this country will not fight. Because, oh my goodness, we have to surrender because they're better people than us. Bullshit. We better than anybody in this world.
Right.
Much better. Because if we put our mind to it, we can do anything.
Right.
I mean, shit, welding ships. Welding ships during World War II to deliver goods. Everybody knew the ship wouldn't survive more than maybe 2 or 3 crossings. Maybe. Right. But that's all it needed, right?
Right. They just kept building those Liberty ships. Yeah.
Exactly. And so who came up with that? The United States did.
Yeah.
So the whole thing, the first of just about everything after the 1900s was done in the U.S. The Americans went there for the machine guns from US to Europe. So almost every innovation in the last century was done in the United States or by Americans.
Right.
To me, there's a reason for that, because you have that freedom. So the pride in the country is number one. The education will be number two. Don't deal with with what I call the Jimmy Carter's Department of Education crap. This was just retarded, because they're killing kids. My wife is just hell-bent of not sending our grandkids to public school. Our children didn't go to public schools either. So she wants to go either Catholic school, the Jewish thing, but to me,
it doesn't matter.
But to me, religion, it's not necessarily a religion per se. It's the guide to what's right and what's wrong. And now here in this country, especially the school system, they're turning the right and wrong upside down, completely upside down.
Right.
And a lot of young people are actually, I can say they're agreeing with it. They don't understand how wrong
they don't know what
wrong
the
is.
history is.
They don't get it. because every time it happened, it failed.
Yeah.
On the biggest scale, which is Soviet Union, it failed, and on the smallest scale, which is Cuba, it failed miserably, and everywhere in between. And the only way, so the second thing is education, and you have to try to study everything. And there's no such thing as a bell curve back in the Soviet Union. There's no such thing as, oh, okay, so this kid is too slow, he's special, we have to deal with it in a different way. He'll be made fun of until he learns. Oh, I was on the receiving end because a couple of things I just wasn't interested in. But yet you study it. There's no such thing as an elective subject. None. You have to take it all. And you have to excel in all of it. Otherwise, they'll be laughing at you in school. The teachers, everyone. So none of that. Teachers are revered there. And they know their stuff. Here, if something happened with this student, oh, it's a teacher's fault. Oh, no. Look at your home first. And there, my mother actually worked in the school system. That's why I was a moron. They had regular weekly visits to the students who were falling behind just to see what the environment was like at home.
Right.
And deliver information, report to the government, local government, and they will take care of it. If the parents are drunks, which most of the time that was the case, it'll be separation and the kid would go to a different school, or they would move him to a different home and go to the same school. So everything was taken care of for the children to bring them up and expend
there was
them.
no choice.
No choice. So to me, that's kind of a good thing, right?
Yeah. Well, that's great. I think we went over just about everything.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
No, I don't mean about time.
Okay.
But we covered a lot of territory there.
Yeah.
You know, I really appreciate your outlook on things.
Oh, I have a ton of stories.
Well, maybe we'll do another interview.
Yeah, the weapons, for one, not weapons, but being able to have weapons at home. Mm-hmm. It's a true indication of freedom. Last country in the world that has that.
So with the Second Amendment,
Second Amendment. The First Amendment, they tried to kill the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. And you can't do that, not in a country like this. Because that's the foundation beyond the foundation. This is the foundation of the foundation. That's that turtle that has whatever sitting on it, and then the earth.
Right.
That's the turtle, the first and second foundation. And so if you start screwing with the Constitution, we can deal with the rest of it, by the way. Mm-hmm. The 16th Amendment, paying taxes, huge taxes. So if you're getting rid of 2,
you can get rid of 16.
16 is gone.
Yeah.
Oh my God, there's so many. Oh. Mm-hmm. You can't open that Pandora's box. It's impossible.
Right.
And to me, what I'm really amazed, and I can't understand how the guys 300 years ago, how could they foresee all that and come up with that list?
It's amazing, isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah. So to me, they actually understood. They had the history on their side, right?
Well, really, there wasn't any history on their side. All they had was the British, monarchy. That's all they had to go off of.
But somehow they really thought about it. And they covered that one up. Well, Franklin was a genius, even by today's standards, I believe. And they had an interesting amount of people just to go through this, do the whole evaluation of what could happen, and they have foreseen this.
Yep.
I'm beyond impressed.
Yeah, and you know how old the youngest person in the Constitution, how old he was that signed the Constitution?
No.
27.
Oh wow! So see, that's what the people should be looking at.
Right.
The history, so the education is number 2. Pride in the country should be number 1. And I'm not saying that white pride or black pride or whatever the hell it is.
American pride.
American pride. You're not African American. You're American with the pigmentation. So the Soviet Union was never a racist country. The issue with Muslims wasn't race; it was religion, right?
Right.
But so coming here, I got shoved in my face that I was lesser person because I came here as an immigrant, and this is by black people.
Right.
And so that's a problem too. You gotta, I don't know, the whole black culture thing. By the way, there's a problem with black culture, right? It's a black culture, and so the Filipino culture, they all try to stay the same as they left their home. No, enjoy the new world. That's why it's called the new world.
Yeah.
You don't want to make the old world out of the new world, right?
That's great.